What is up, guys? My name is Lex. Welcome back to the vlog. We have been playing poker and living in Dallas, Texas for about 5 weeks now, but when this video comes out, we will be on the road again, heading to San Antonio Rounders Card Club for 4 days. After that, going to Austin, Texas, playing at the Lodge and Texas Card House Austin. A lot of live streams that week as well. After our time in Austin, we are heading out west for the holidays. Las Vegas, Nevada for 2 weeks. Going to be playing some high stakes at Bellagio, Aria, Wynn, Resorts World. I'm super excited about that. But 2022, the new year, we are heading somewhere we've never been for poker, Los Angeles, California. Gonna be playing in LA, Commerce, Hustler, at the Bike, maybe some other places. I'm not even sure where the good places to play poker out there, but I'm super excited. Hope you guys enjoy all these traveling poker vlogs. I'm excited for what's coming up in the future. It's gonna be bigger and better. After tonight's session, we're going to a country bar. I guess that's what they do here in Dallas. Gonna be line dancing, listening to some country music. Hopefully we can pull off a win, one of our last sessions here at Dallas. But let's get to the action. Let's get to the table. Let's go. Sitting down at the 2-5 game at Texas Card House with $6,000 in our stack. We have pocket nines. There's an early position raise to 30. We make the call and another player makes the call on the hijack. 3 ways to a king 10-9 board. Flopping a set, our very first hand in the initial raiser, continues to bet. He makes a bet of $80. With bottom set, sometimes I will raise, but this time I decide to just call $80, and now the hijack player, a short stack, decides to go all in. He shoves all in for $270. The initial raiser contemplates his options, thinks for a little bit of time, and decides to call $270. What a great spot to be in. Flopping a set, there's an all-in and a call. I guess I could be putting in a back raise 3-bet here, but that would just be super strong. I don't want to let my opponent off the hook with just one single pair hand, so I decide to continue to set the trap, slow play here, and make the call. Best case scenario is that on the turn, the initial raiser will put out a bet trying to protect his one pair hand, and I'll be able to raise all in, and he'll feel pot committed after putting in so much money. So now we're heads up to the 4th card, which is the 8 of spades, and now to my surprise, the initial raiser decides to check. I do know one thing, and that is I'm not going to be checking my set of nines here. I decide to put out a bet of $325, and the initial raiser calls $325. The dealer collects our chips into the side pot and puts out the river, which is the ace of hearts. We only have to be worried about this card if my opponent has pocket aces. He could improve to 2 pair on this card with about $700 left in his stack. He checks it over to me, and I decide I only have one option, and that is to go all in. He doesn't think for too long and decides to let his cards go. I show my pocket nines for a set, and it is good. We take down the side pot and the main pot. Our first hand here, playing 2-5 on a Saturday night. Next up, we are in the big blind with ace-queen. There's a cutoff limp for $5. The button makes it 20, and now the small blind, who is a German professional player, decides to put in a 3-bet. He re-raises here to $110, and against this particular player, I think I can be putting in a cold 4-bet here. My guess is that this opponent is going to be using a 3-bet or fold strategy out of the small blind, which means that he's going to have a lot of hands that he is re-raising here, some suited connectors, some weaker aces, some smaller pocket pairs, and Broadway cards. So I think I can put a lot of pressure on those hands. I can also have the best hands, so I put in a cold 4-bet. I re-raise here to $325. The small blind glances at me and shoots me a smile and lets his cards go. We end up taking this one down with ace high. So far, after about 30 minutes of play, we're up over $1,000. They then call a new 5-10 game. I haven't been playing much 5-10 here in Dallas, but today on a Saturday night, I'm filming, so I decide to sit down. I buy in for a little over $3,000, hoping to get into some big pots. In this hand, I have Jack 8 of hearts and call $5 pre-flop. End up going 4 ways to a limp pot of queen 9 6 2 hearts, flopping a gut shot and a flush draw. I lead right out for $25. Big blind folds. Under the gun player makes a call for $25, and the button makes a call as well. So 3 ways to the turn, which is the ace of hearts, giving us a flush. Now that I made my hand, I'm going to continue to put money in this pot. I put out a bet of $50. Under the gun folds, however, the button sticks around. He matches my bet for $50, going to the last card, which is the king of clubs. This can potentially improve my opponent to 2 pair or a straight if he had jack 10. So I decide to go big here with my flush. I bet $250. The button goes into the tank. He ends up showing me the queen of hearts for 2nd pair and ends up folding. We take down another pot. Under the gun straddle to $20. This game has has been bumped. The cutoff player raises to $60. I'm in the big blind and re-raise to $250 with Ace-King offsuit, a premium hand. The under the gun straddler folds and the cutoff makes the call. Heads up, out of position in a 3-bet pot, which comes out King, Jack, 6, 2 diamonds. We flop top pair, top kicker. I put out a bet of $225 and the cutoff makes the call. The turn card is a deuce of hearts, now bringing in 2 flush draws with about $2,500 left in my stack. I want to go big on this turn card so that I can shove all in on all brick river cards, so I settle on a bet of $1,000. The cutoff does not believe my story. He ends up making the call for $1,000. We are going to the river in a massive pot, which is the deuce of diamonds, pairing the board and bringing in that front door flush. Not really the card we want to see here. My opponent can have a queen high, an ace high, or a 10 high combo draw that got there on the river, so I don't think an all-in is good. I decide to check it over to him. He thinks for a while, about 30 seconds, and checks this one back. We show ace-king for top 2 pair, and it is good. We end up taking down over a $3,000 pot. The big difference between a 2-5 and a 5-10 game here at Texas Card House is not the amount of money on the table, but the size of the blinds. We're doing a $20 straddle, so this game is 4 times bigger, which means the pots are just going to be that much larger. We're hoping to run good here on a Saturday night and win some big pots with about 4 hours left till we hit the country bar. Let's run good and build this stack. The villain in this next hand was limping probably 80% of the hands that he played. He was limp folding and limp calling. So when I have queen jack offsuit next to act, I decide to ISO raise here to $50, folds all the way back over to him, and he decides to put in the limp re-raise to $180. He has about $2,000 left in his stack, so I think in position here, I can make the call. This player had been playing a ton of hands, and he's probably the weakest player at the table, so I want to be getting in there, playing hands in position. My hand is not that strong. It can be dominated by a lot of his range, but if I can smash a board, I could potentially win a $4,000 pot, going heads up to the flop, which comes out jack high. We end up flopping top pair. Flopping top pair on this board is good, but it could be problematic if my opponent limp re-raised a hand like aces, kings, and queens. He puts out a c-bet of $120, and I am not going to be folding yet. I want to see the turn card, so I make the call. I've watched this player bluff off his stack a couple times, so whenever the turn is a brick and he continues to bet here for $280, I think he can be doing this with hands like ace-queen, possibly king-queen, maybe ace-king as well, and I'm ahead of all those hands, so I decide to match his bet of $280, going to the last card, which is the king of clubs. Obviously, this is a terrible river card for us. If he was bluffing with a hand like ace-king or king-queen, he got there on the river. We are now losing to aces, ace-king, king-queen, pocket queens, pocket jacks, and he decides with about $1,300 left in his stack to rip it all in, and I am done with this hand. I make the fold. He later told me he had pocket jacks, and I don't really like my pre-flop call here. He showed a lot of strength by limp re-raising out of position, and queen jack is just going to be dominated by a lot of his big hands like aces, kings, and queens. I think I would rather call with a small pocket pair looking to hit a set or a suited connector, but either way, we end up losing about $500 here of our profit. Even though we made a mistake, the poker gods reward us with pocket kings on the button. There's an open by a tighter player to $50. I decide to 3-bet on the button to $175, and with about $2,000 left in his stack, he makes the call, so we're heads up in a 3-bet pot, which comes out ace high, everyone's nightmare when they're holding pocket kings, and it gets even worse when the tight player in early position decides to lead out here. He makes it $175. This lead by this player doesn't really make much sense. Is he really doing this with a strong hand? I would expect him to check raise some sets and 2 pairs, and I don't think he's leading out here with ace jack or ace queen, so I make the call. This is Texas, and sometimes people do some weird shit. Going to the turn, which is the 8 of hearts, and now my opponent decides to check. A very interesting line my opponent has taken so far, but I decide to check back this turn card, going to the river, which is the 10 of diamonds, and now the early position player who led out on the flop and checked the turn bets $400, and against this particular player, he had been playing very tight all session, not getting out of line, not showing any bluffs, so I make the fold here with pocket kings. We have now agreed to make the table 5, 10, 20 mandatory straddle. There's a call for $20 by the action player who'd been limping basically every hand. I have pocket 8s next to act in the cutoff and raise to $100, and my opponent makes the call. There is a ton of money on this table. With the mandatory straddle, the pots are getting pretty big. We see a board of ace, 4, 6, 2 hearts. I would expect my opponent to raise some of his ace-x hands, so when he checks it over to me, I feel pretty confident that my pocket 8s are good here, so I put out a bet of $60, and to my surprise, he puts in a check raise. He re-raises here to 160. What's going through my head right now is that he could potentially be bluff raising given the fact that I bet pretty small on this board, only $60 into over $200 pot. He could potentially be raising here with a 6, maybe a hand like a straight and flush draw. So I want to call here and see what happens on the turn, which is the 7 of clubs. Does improve us now to a gut shot, but my opponent does not let off the gas. He keeps betting. $400 bet, and we are just going to let this one go. We make the fold. Unfortunately, our stack is slowly bleeding down. At one point, we were up $2,000 on the session, but with the straddle, the big blind, and the small blind, we're losing $35 every single orbit. We're raising to $100. We're c-betting and folding, not really making any hands, so now we're only up about $1,000 with about an hour left of our session. I have Jack-8 of diamonds next. I raise pre-flop. I c-bet the flop, check back the turn, and my opponent leads out on the river. I end up losing about $220 in this hand. We are on the last hand of the night, and it is a wild one. We have pocket tens. There's an under the gun raised to $65 over a straddle, and this player who raised had been playing very tight, not getting out of line, not playing many hands, so I decide to call in the small blind with pocket tens. The big blind folds, and the straddler makes the call. We were up about $2,000 in the session, but slowly have lost our profit, only up about $500 now. Let's smash this board. The last hand of the night, which comes out ace, queen, 10, flopping a set. We check it over to the initial raiser, who puts out a bet of $75. Just like the very first hand of the session, we flop bottom set on a connected board. I decide to slow play here given the fact that there is no flush draws and their only straight draw is gut shots. I make the call for $75. We end up going heads up to the 9 of hearts. I check it over to him, and now he ramps up the bet sizing. Now he bets $325. With $1,500 left in his stack, he ends up putting out a pot size bet of $325, and against a half pot size or 2/3 pot size bet, I would most likely check raise here and go all in on the river, but against this particular player who had not been getting out of line, hardly playing any hands, very tight, I actually had a bad feeling. I'm losing to aces, queens, and king jack, so I think for a while and decide to just make the call. With $1,000 in the middle, the dealer puts out the 8 on the river, bringing a one-liner to a jack for a straight. I play and flow and check, and my opponent instantly checks back. I feel like I must have the best hand. I announce a set, and my opponent shows pocket aces for a higher set. We got set over set, our very last hand of the night.
Okay, set. Set of aces.
Oh, wow.
Wait. Can you put that board back out?
How many boards, huh?
Wow, I lost the minimum, I guess.
Yeah.
The board paired, yeah. We're gonna see some fireworks.
After being up over $2,000, we slowly bled away our stack, lost a couple hands back to back, and then got set over set. Our very last hand of the night, we end up racking up our chips, heading to the cage and cashing out, but the night is not over yet. All right, guys, that is it for this one. Ended up running super hot in the beginning of the session, flopping a set, winning a big pot with ace-king at the 5-10 game, and then ran very cold, couldn't win a hand, lost with pocket kings, lost with jack-8 of diamonds, set under set, tens versus aces, only lost like $400, so I would take that as some run good. Then we went over here to Red River. We did some bull riding, some country music, dancing, listening to some country music. It was a lot of fun, but that is it here for Dallas. We're moving on. Next up, San Antonio, then Austin, Vegas, LA. Hope you guys enjoyed these videos. If you do, hit that like, comment down below, and make sure you subscribe. And until next time, I'll see you.